Welcome to a tutorial on the Learning to Give website. This is Learning to Give, and it is the web address is learningtogive.org. So this is a free website for educators to use. It is a not-for-profit, so being on here does not put you in a situation where you will ever be solicited for anything. But it is created for the incorporation of philanthropy education and service learning in the classroom. And the lessons that are included in this website are written by teachers, and then they are perfected so that when you get to use them, they are already vetted for you to use in the classroom. This website is very user-friendly, but there is a great volume of material here. So the purpose today is to take you through the different tabs and different areas in Learning to Give where you might want to really go to get started incorporating it into your existing curriculum. One thing I'd like to say from the onset is that Learning to Give is not something that is an extra thing for an educator to do in the classroom. It actually is a tool that educators can use to make what they're already doing in the classroom that much better. And when I say that much better, this is going to connect to content standards, Indiana standards specifically. I will show you how that happens so that you can use this tool to teach, reteach, or reinforce Indiana standards in your classroom in a unique way, giving students an engaging method to use to incorporate service learning, find their passion, and acquire these critical skills while being engaged in something that has real-world application, which is very important to students. When they ask an educator, why do I need this? When will I ever use this? One of the things that happens is at that point, they're already becoming disengaged. They don't see the need for the skill, nor do they see that it has any long-term application for them. So when they can utilize skills in a meaningful way that takes that question out of the equation, they will have more engagement. They will have long-term application of those skills. It puts it into the long-term memory because they've used the skills in a practical way, and it becomes a part of who students are. Another thing I just would like to mention is that inherent in the skills that students will utilize in planning and implementing a service learning project, they will also be developing critical employability skills, critical social emotional learning, and also be engaged in the STEM or engineering design process through the methods and steps that they will use as they go through the entire service learning project. So with that introduction, let's take a look at what Learning to Give has to offer. This is the home page. On the home page, you will almost always find something that is germane to the time. Like since I'm recording this in December, the next important event that educators might be thinking about after the holiday break would be Dr. Martin Luther King Day. And how do we take that day and make it meaningful? Well, here are some lessons that will help you do that. They get us beyond just showing students the I Have a Dream speech, because Dr. Martin Luther King did so much more than just make a speech. So here, if you just simply click on the Teach One lessons, at that point you will see lessons that are going to be divided by grade level that you can look at and incorporate on Dr. Martin Luther King Day if you're in school, or as we approach that day when we return from the holiday break. But also there are some videos here that are good for you to see, for you to share with students, that talk about what philanthropy and service is, and anything that's currently being featured on the website. Those things will also be on this front page. So you will want to create an account, and once you do that, you will actually have a dashboard where you can store your bookmarked lessons, and I will show you what that looks like as we go through the tutorial. So I tell educators the first place to go on Learning to Give is literally to click these words right here called Get Started. When you click on those words, it's going to open the Get Started page, and here's what it looks like. At the top of the Get Started page is a very short but very engaging video on what philanthropy is. And it is done by an artist who draws images that represent philanthropy. This is really a K through 12 video. The vocabulary is such that your older students can watch this and glean understanding, but because of the drawings and the way the terms are broken down, a kindergarten class would find this an engaging presentation as well. It's about 3 minutes in length, and it's a super great way to get students introduced to the idea of philanthropy, and that philanthropy is something that really is cradle to grave, that we all have something to give. It's not just a money problem, but it is also important to give of our time and our talent in order to make a difference in our communities. Below that video, there are suggestions of 10 ways to get started using Learning to Give in the classroom. And literally, these are all live links to resources that you can use in putting together a service learning project in your classroom and getting your kids involved. Here's the search for lessons. Here we go with an introduction to philanthropy and what that looks like. Even the terms that are used in philanthropy when we teach that. And a lot of the things that I will show you today can be accessed right from this Get Started page, in case you don't remember where I told you to go to find them. But I also wanted to show you that, again, here's another link to that video that's at the top of the page. And then there are 3 other subsequent videos that you can also share with students to teach them about the different kinds of action that can be taken as they are engaged in a service learning project, that indeed service learning does not have to be just direct service where students go out into the community to serve, but most and much of what students can do that is still philanthropy can be done within the confines of a traditional classroom, because research, advocacy, and indirect service are forms of service learning. And it's going to explain that here in the stages of service learning and also understanding advocacy and action. So this is just a great place to go to remind you of the things that you're going to see today and to find some of those introductory activities or videos that you can share with students to get them started on the road to being modern day philanthropists. Once I've explored this page as an educator, my next place to go, under the Teach tab, if you scroll, look at the pull-down menu, you'll see the words Issue Areas. This is a very important place because what it has done is it takes all the more than 1,700 teacher-created lesson plans that are on the Learning to Give site, and it has organized them by themes or topics. So what you can do is find one that maybe matches your content area. Find one where students want to serve. Maybe by doing an activity where they discover where they are passionate about service. I wanted to point out this one in particular, establishing a culture of kindness, because as a school, anti-bullying lessons are on here, and so are character education units. So if you're thinking of looking for ways to incorporate social emotional learning into your school day, this would be a great issue area on the website to explore for that. But you can see environmental lessons, most of those connect to science and to mathematics, but some of them will also connect to obviously basic philanthropy and then language arts, because you'll be reading a lot of good nonfiction here. So just looking at these different issue areas, there's civic participation and voting, thinking ahead to election years. These are great lessons that help you teach about our civic responsibility without making it political, because that's really important that students understand it's not about how you feel about something, but it's about exercising your rights as a citizen and becoming civically involved. Honoring our veterans and community helpers. So if students want to show appreciation for our troops, for our firefighters, for our police, this is where there are lessons that help them find service learning where they can do so. Civil rights, justice, and advocacy, really good lessons to be teaching during January, especially to honor the legacy of Dr. King. The arts is a cultural necessity for our special area teachers who often think they're left out of content like this. These are really good lessons that teach that we are who we are because of how we express ourselves, and we often do that through the arts, and how that's important in defining us as a culture. Advocacy for animals. This is a great area where students become very engaged because they have a heart for those creatures that need us. And this gives them ideas of how they can serve and make a difference. How do we respond and prepare for a crisis? These are really good lessons. A natural disaster occurs, and students will find that they want to do something, and they may ask a teacher, what can we do? Particularly, I remember when there were fires in the Smoky Mountains, there was a group of students that had gone to their teachers because they had seen pictures of the bears that didn't have homes after the wildfires in the Smokies, and they wanted to make a difference. These lessons here will help them find ideas and find lesson plans for you where they can take action to make a difference when natural disasters occur, or when there is a crisis that they would like to respond to in a generous way. Intergenerational relationships, how do we honor those people who are our elders? How do we respect them appropriately, and what can we do to help them? Global issues of peace and justice, these are really good in helping students understand that we're a member of a school community, our local community, but we're also members of a global community, and that we do have a responsibility to understand the problems in a global community and address them as we are able. It's also a great way to go through a project with students and help them understand that something like world peace is a desirable outcome, but it's probably too big of an idea to tackle in a service learning project by itself, and to help them understand that we need to look at those kinds of topics and figure out where we can make a difference that makes sense and can begin to contribute to some of those bigger ideas and desires like world peace. Literacy and literature, you might look at this because there are lessons here that will connect literally to novels and books that you may already be reading in the classroom, K through 12. Hunger, homelessness, and poverty. Let's make those service learning projects where we do a canned food drive meaningful. Students sometimes can become a little apathetic about canned food drives. They've done them for years. They don't necessarily see the why. Often we take canned food drives and make those a goal, like we're going to collect 14,000 cans, and when we do that, then there will be this outcome. The principal gets a pie in the face, or whatever that outcome might be. And generally, that's not as motivating as if you can share with students what the need looks like. For instance, 1 in 5 students in the United States does not know where the next meal is coming from. Those are the kinds of statistics and ideas that help students become passionate about making a difference and donating food so that people don't go hungry. The last area on here is health and safety. And again, this could be a wellness campaign for your school. This could be something your PE and health teachers could key into and maybe spearhead. But what does that look like? I've had teachers do bike safety campaigns, all kinds of different ideas that are in this area where students can serve. So that is the issue areas page. And again, I'm going to scroll to the top, but that is located under the Teach tab, and it's the third item down. Once you've looked at the issue areas, there is a very special magic button on every issue area. It's this thing here called View Toolkit. Why do I like toolkits? Well, I opened one for you. This is the Service Learning Toolkit for Kindness. I opened this one because this is where you're going to find the anti-bullying lessons and the character education lessons, but it also gives you a good overview of what a toolkit does for you. I tell educators this is a one-stop shop. This is where you're going to find the curriculum connection that's so important in service learning, as well as ideas for projects. So remember I said once you've created an account, you can bookmark your resources. Here's the tab that will help you do so. You simply click on that, and then you never have to figure out where this toolkit is located again. It will just be on your dashboard. Once you've bookmarked it, here are the things that you will find in a typical toolkit. The first thing you will find will be actual live links to lessons that fit the topic. So in this case, the anti-bullying lessons, the character education lessons, and any other kindness lesson plans are right here. Once you click on those, you will see that they're going to be filtered by grade level. So you can go through and choose ones that fit the grade that you're working with best. Although I will say, that any lesson on learning to give can be adapted for an older audience or a younger audience. Below the lesson plan links, you will find the first of 4 suggested projects for this topic. And in this chart, those topics will always be delineated by the kind of service that is delivered in the project. So if indeed you're interested in a direct service project where the students are actually out in the community doing service, that is going to be a project under here. If you want students to do indirect service where the service takes place perhaps in your classroom away from the community where it's going to be delivered to make an impact and then given to an organization or sent to the people that can deliver the goods to the recipients. That's an indirect service. Advocacy is where students can create a project that heightens public awareness of the situation, and then research simply by understanding a problem better or well. Students are involved in service. So the act of researching and becoming educated is the first step in service learning and is actually service in and of itself, because we can't make a difference in an area where we don't understand what the need actually is in our community. So below those 4 project ideas will be additional project ideas. And again, they're all live links to projects. Each one of these green titles is a suggested project that addresses this issue area. And there are some videos to inspire kids to get involved. Again, here are more ideas. And then there's just an entire list of ideas of things that students can do in your classroom for service learning in this area. Then below that is a list of potential community partners. This is important because students won't necessarily have an idea of where service can be performed or who they can contact in order to get more information about the service, or perhaps even find speakers who could come in and talk to students about what the need looks like and what their organization does and can do in partnership with them. So there's always a list of suggested places that students can contact in order to get more information or find places to serve. Below that, and as a former language arts teacher, this really makes me happy, there are places where students can go to do bona fide research. I try always to steer kids away from Google because Google's first stop is always Wikipedia. And as an educator, I know that is not always a bona fide and reliable source. Instead, if the students will go to these live links here, they're going to find information that is relevant, that is accurate, and that will give them good information to help them find out what the needs are and what their projects can look like based on understanding the issue that they want to address. So this is great for that research piece, to come here and click on these live links rather than Google the topic. So that was a toolkit. Again, toolkits are found under the Teach button, going to issue areas, finding an issue area where you want to serve and clicking on the green button that says View Toolkit. Love this one-stop shop. This is content and project all in one place. Where should we go next? Let's see how we find a lesson. And literally, you can go to the green search button and just click on that, and you're going to get this page right here called a resource search. At that point, you can put in an issue area, you can put in a topic, you can put in what your content lesson is for the day, and click the search button, and it's going to show you available lessons in this area. I just picked environment, but you can refine your search. Word to the wise, these buttons down here need to be filled in first before you type this in up here. So if I want to filter my audience, I can do so. But I can also, by faith groups, independent schools, parents, or students, but I can also filter by grade level. I can filter by subject, and I can filter by issue area. So all of those are ways that you can filter. If you just want to do a general search of like the environment, you'll see that below are lessons that you can choose to look at. There is a brief synopsis of each lesson and the suggested grade level for the lesson, usually based on content and vocabulary. But again, if you like the idea of the lesson, you can always look at it and see how you can make it more apropos to the grade level that you teach. And in this case of the environment, there are just pages and pages and pages of lessons. So there's a lot of content here. Sometimes when you're looking at this much content, you might want to go ahead and apply one of these filters to get you through some of the content to find maybe something that's more in the area where you want to work with students prior to looking at all of these different lessons, because there's a great volume. So that's a basic resource search. But you can also search lessons by content standard. When you do so, you want to select Indiana Standards. I picked grade 6 to be right in the middle. And then you can pick a subject area, and they're all listed on here. I picked language arts. After you have filled in these 3 areas, click the words Find Lesson. And when you do, you're going to find all the standards and strands for that grade level and that subject area based on Indiana academic standards. I opened up nonfiction, especially because I find that good nonfiction is difficult to find for educators to enhance the curriculum in the school with good nonfiction reading. And then I picked the basic indicator 6.1, read a variety of nonfiction within a range of complexity appropriate for grades 6 to 8, and being able to read those independently with scaffolding is needed at the high end of the range. And once I clicked that, it opened up all these lessons. Now this is just each one of these a list of a lesson that you can open up that is going to teach, reteach, and reinforce that standard. And literally there are hundreds of those lessons that will help you with that Indiana academic standard. So this is a wealth of information free for educators to use. It's very interdisciplinary, so we can have all educators in the school supporting that very critical skill of reading and understanding nonfiction literature. So a very valuable resource and a valuable resource that is free for you to use. And I'm not even all the way down the page, and there are still more lessons available for me to use. So this is a great way to connect service learning and philanthropy to those content standards that we need to be teaching on a daily basis. So what does a lesson look like? I've opened one up for you. This happens to be a middle school lesson called Perspectives of a Refugee. Some things I want to point out about a basic lesson are as follows. At the top of the lesson, you may see a rectangle like this with a pull down. This indicates that there are several lessons in a unit. Now, you do not ever have to do an entire unit. You do not ever have to do even an entire lesson. Learning to Give is here for you to use as it fits what you're already doing in the classroom. But if your students are really engaged in the service learning and you're looking for additional resources to help support their project, You could do all or part of the 3 units in a lesson because they do build on one another, but they also work well standalone. So this will give you an idea if there are other resources on Learning to Give specifically related to the lesson that you're looking at. Then you're going to see these specific subjects that this lesson best supports, and any keywords or concepts that students will be learning, plus an overview of the lesson itself. This one has already been bookmarked by me, but you can take a bookmark off or click this and create a bookmark of a lesson that you particularly like. Also, all lessons can be printed out so that you could even leave them as substitute plans in your classroom if you needed to. Below each one, there's the print button, by the way. Below each one of those introductory information bars, you will then see the actual lesson. It will tell you the duration of the lesson, the objectives that will be taught during the lesson, the materials that are needed during the lesson, including if there are handouts, you don't have to create those. Those are going to be at the bottom of the lesson, and I will show those to you in a moment. The vocabulary that you're going to be teaching through teaching this lesson, and reflection exercises that students will be doing as they proceed through the lesson. Reflection is an important component of service learning because it helps students understand what they're doing. It gives them an opportunity to change things in flight, to correct if they need to correct, to replicate what is good, and even how to counteract no if they are asking a question of a community member and no is the answer they receive. I contend that no is a valuable response to students to help them understand how when we hear no, that doesn't mean we quit, but we find a way to regroup and readdress a situation so that maybe we can get a yes instead of a no. Once you've looked at those pieces, here are the actual instructions for the lesson, including a suggested way to assess what they know at the end. There's always an anticipatory set. Then there are step-by-step instructions for proceeding through the lesson. And then at the bottom, there are handouts. And these handouts, if you have an account and you are logged in, they're right here. You don't have to, again, create those. These can be printed out to share with your class. Word to the wise, they are not something that students can respond on with a one-on-one device, and that is because this is a national website, and because students are minors, to keep their information private. In order to respond on these, you either need to put them in a Google Doc and share them that way, or print them out and let students just write on those hard copies of the documents. At the bottom of every lesson is a way to find the standards that are on this lesson. So if you want to know what standards you're teaching by engaging in this lesson, this is sort of a backward search. You can literally put in what standard you're looking for, any grade level or a subject or any part of these 3 items, click Find Standards, and it's going to show you the standards that are addressed through the lesson. So that's a typical lesson on Learning to Give that is free for you to use. And remember, there are more than 1,700 of these on this website. All right, there's a lot of material here. So how can you be maybe a little more deliberate in planning service learning into your curriculum? I would then suggest you go back to the Get Started button and go to the bottom pull down, which is called Plan Giving Instruction. When you click on that, you're going to see that the year has been divided by months into a calendar. And each one of these headings lists ideas and big ideas that students are going to be hearing about and thinking about during this time period. Let's take January for instance. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We've talked about that. That's a day that has some really important teachable moments. And you could literally just click on the word January and you'll be connected to lessons that fit all three of these topics: New Year's Day, Teach One for Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and National Mentoring Month. So lessons that fit these topics. The entire year is on the calendar with the exception of the month of July. So you could choose a couple months of the year where you wish to serve. You could look at doing something deliberately every month and connect it to, again, what kids are thinking about during that month. Or perhaps just find a topic that you know is interesting to students and go to that month. And again, you don't have to use these lessons, like the March lessons only in March. World Water Day, March 22nd. Kids probably don't even know that's a thing. So you could start talking about that now and why water is an important resource that we need to value and protect. And start working on that in advance of World Water Day, because perhaps you want to just do some advocacy that is specifically for that day. So your kids plan how they're going to roll that out prior to March 22nd to let people know that it's important that we protect this limited natural resource. So that is the plan giving instruction page under Get Started at the bottom. The next area that I would go to under Get Started is Teach One. It is a very top item. I've already sort of mentioned this in the past and prior to this, but Teach One identifies some key times of the year. It's almost on a quarterly basis where service learning just makes sense. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Earth Day, coming back to school, talking about accepting one another, doing some kindness sort of ideas or activities, service learning projects. And these fit naturally for students, and they're natural times when service makes the most sense. So when you open up a Teach One, and I'm doing the featured lesson here, back to school, I opened that. What you will see is the lessons are listed here. There are 3 of them. It will tell you a little bit about this lesson itself, an overview of the unit, some things that students can do for service, and the 3 lessons that are underneath. And these are, again, listed by grade level, but I want to tell you that the Teach One lessons were originally K through 12, and then they were kind of refined into different grade levels, but they really are good, so good that they could really be used any grade level. This Community of Crayon Collectors is one of my favorites. This is really a K through 12 lesson. As a matter of fact, it's a great community lesson where schools can work together to make a difference in a very simple service learning project. So I highly recommend this lesson. It's one that I've had all age levels use, and it's been very inspiring for a lot of different communities. So that's the Teach One button. And again, that was found under Get Started, the very top item. Next, I would take you back to Teach. The second item down is called Current Events. This is an important resource for educators. It's going to take some very, maybe even controversial issues that are currently in the news. And it's going to help you as an educator talk about these things in a very non-political, non-judgmental way, where sometimes as an educator, we have to address those things that are in the news, but we don't want to politicize them. This will take you through a very, very important prospect of how we can address them and just put the facts out so students can make informed decisions on their own. So very, very good application of lessons and ideas. How do we look at those as a responsible, civically engaged student? So if there is something that is a current event that your students are wondering about, I always suggest you check here to see if to Give has some suggestions for how you can address that in the most compassionate and informative manner that makes a difference for students. So going back to where we navigate under Get Started, the third item down is called Build Community. If you open up this page, there are some great lessons to get kids started in how they want to be involved in service. It helps, these lessons are designed to help them find their passion. One of my favorites is this lesson here called Map Your Heartbreak. It is a very simple lesson that you can do with students in groups or individually, where they can discover what they're passionate about in the area of service, making a difference, finding ways that they can now become civically engaged. So I highly recommend this lesson, and you can find it easily by simply going to Build Community under the Get Started link and scrolling down, and there is Map Your Heartbreak. Very simple lesson, great one to use to get kids brainstorming about service learning in the classroom. Finally, because I know that we're all charged with earning professional growth points and finding ways to enhance our professional development, Learning to Give has included online courses for educators, and I just wanted to show those to you. They are under the words Professional Development Online Courses. And what's really nice is that you can literally learn more about service learning right from your computer. So the different courses are listed below. At the end of each one of them, there is a certificate that you can print out and turn in for PGP. So these are really good lessons to help educators become more knowledgeable about service learning, about the process of utilizing service learning, the benefits of service learning, another introduction to the website, how you can incorporate service learning and infuse it into your teaching, and also where do we as a nation come from with service learning and philanthropy, and those connections will be drawn for you right here, and how to get started with service learning in your school or your classroom. So that again is under the Professional Development tab, Online Courses. So that's an overview of the key areas on Learning to Give where you might want to explore and utilize in order to use this wonderful resource in your classroom. Going back to that home page, please go in and create an account, and I wish you great success in utilizing a wonderful resource that will make a difference for you and for your students. Thank you for your time.